Welcome guys, welcome to this video. In this video we are going to create this Note app, and we will be using the JavaScript object-oriented programming in this tutorial. And I'm going to use the approach where one file of JS is going to be responsible for the UI component, and also the another file will handle the CRUD functionality. We will use local storage. And to see about the app, so currently here is the app. So if I click add new node here, we get the new node, and we can add anything here. So any title, anything, and we can put the content. And when we see it automatically comes here, then we click here again, it comes here straight away. So we can delete these. So when you click on the delete, it is gonna delete. Now you can also see that these are all sorted based on the time. Now you click on any of these, you simply see that the detail is updating there. So any node you want to edit, you just go there and click, and you can make the changes. And when you make the changes, so for example this one is the oldest, so if I change it now, and you will see that this goes to top. So because this is now the latest updated. So let's see how we can create this application, and yeah, let's get started. Alright guys, to start with, I have the Visual Studio open, and I have a blank folder test on my desktop, which is empty currently. So I have open here. So I'm going to create a file here called index.html. Alright, now here we want to have the HTML code. I'm just going to save this, and if I open this folder, you will notice we have the HTML file there. So I also have the PowerShell up, and here I am already in the test folder, so the same folder here on the desktop. There is nothing else currently, it's totally blank. So what we need to do, we need to create files here. So first of all, I'm going to create a folder which is going to be JS, and here we are going to create file app.js. So I'm going to put app.js, and also I'm going to add another file which is going to be main.js. And step by step it is going to be clear why and what these files, and why and what we are exactly going to do with these files. So don't worry about them currently. Now what we want to do, we have the main.js, all the files we will be using here, so that we can call this file in our HTML. So here in the body, I'm going to go and call for the script tag, and here simply source going to be the JS folder and /main.js. Now we will be calling the JS files, so that main.js will have the app.js called inside here. So for that we need to call this JS file as a module. So we say type, and it is going to be a module. Alright, so this will allow us to work. Now here on the head tag, I'm going to change it to a Note application, and also I'm going to pause here a style tag because we will be adding a bit of styling, not much but small portion. Now let's go to the browser. I have the browser up here, and currently I have here Bootstrap link, so that we can include the Bootstrap in our project. I have this link in description as well, you can copy from there. So I'm just going to copy this link, go back to our HTML file, and here simply going to call for link and paste the URL. I copied the wrong one, we need the CSS, so it's this one. So yeah, go back, delete this. Paste the CSS here. Alright, looks better. So now if I go here, div with the class of container, and inside it we're gonna have div the app, and then div with the class of row. Okay, and inside we are going to call div call md3. I'm gonna copy and paste this one more time. This is just to divide in 2-column layout, and this is something that is done with through Bootstrap, so not very hard, very basic stuff. Now what we want to do here is, if I go to the this app currently, so for example, if I go here in test folder and try to open this, well, we get this, all right, and if I go inspect, we get the error. The thing is, we are using modules, so we need to work accordingly. So here, if I go to text editor back here, so we are using it here. So to work with this, we need to run server. And how we can run server, I go to the terminal in PowerShell, and here I'm going to run a package inside the our folder here, live server. Just gonna install it. We're gonna allow it for some time, so let it install, and then we can run it, and this is going to run our app. Alright, so for running, I just say live server and I hit return. I'm just gonna paste this link here. So it's our app currently, but we don't have anything, so it's not showing. So let's see how we can show. So just go to the text editor one more time. Here I'm gonna say simply hello, and when I save this, you see that hello is showing up there. Alright, so we can proceed from here, because this is not what we want. We want a node manager app to work with our JS file. So currently main.js is empty, so I'm gonna call the app.js in main.js. So let's say, so we say simply import, and I'm gonna call app from. Now here we're gonna pod dot slash, and it's gonna get the app. So this is the current directory, and there is app folder, app.js file present. So it's just gonna call that. We're gonna pass here .js and save this. All right. Now we need to select the HTML, this portion of our HTML, so that we can display and the data and nodes here. So there is a trick we can do. We can select it using JavaScript. So here we say constant, and I'm gonna call this root, and then it's going to be the document dot get element by ID. If I spelled it right, and we have app here, so that we need to pass. Now we can do this. We can use this app in our application wherever we want. So I'm gonna save this for now. I'm gonna go to app.js. Now in app.js, we need to work. So when you import a class or a file, you must be exporting it from here. So I'm gonna export default, and it's going to be a class. I'm gonna call it app. All right, and as it's a class, we can use constructor in it. So it's constructor, and the constructor, I want to have the access to root. Now what is this root? If you remember, we just got it here. So we are just getting the HTML using JavaScript, passing it to this variable constant, and then passing that constant in constructor. Now to have the access here in the constructor, if you guessed it right, we need to instantiate the app class, and there we need to pass the value. So here we can do this way, simply new app and root. So you get the idea. We call the app on top, we bind the HTML here, got the root, then we use the class app that we called and passed this root. Now here we can use this, and that's what is the main reason we did it this way. Now what we want to do here, because we are dealing with nodes, so I'm going to call a variable. This is going to be this dot nodes. Initially I'm going to set it to empty array. Alright, now what do we want to do? Now we want to have few nodes by default. So currently we don't have any node, and we haven't stored any as well. So what we can do, simply we can say this dot nodes, and we want to set nodes. So I'm going to create another class. It's going to be node model. All right, and they're going to be a function that we're going to create. So get and notes, and I will say for testing. All right, this is going to be the function, and we are going to pass this blank array in there. So currently we don't have this class, so let's create it. So here in the same directory, I'm going to create, and it's going to be .js. Now the way we imported the app here, the same way we need to import the model, not model. So I'm going to go here and tab, I'm going to say import not model from, and here / not model. Alright, so we have it. Now if we go here, we don't have anything, so we need to export bolt. And it is going to be a class, obviously, and name is node model. Alright, now this class also going to have a constructor. Okay, let's see again. So here we called it, and we need a function inside this class. Currently we don't have it, so let's add this function. I just copied the name from here. We get back here, just below the constructor, I'm going to pass this function. And here, what do we need to do? This function basically going to get us the note. So for example, currently we don't have any, so I'm going to create an array. So I'm going to say here notes, and here if we go back, so we are passing notes here, so we get that notes from here. All right, and here I'm going to say it is an array. I'm going to give it static ID for now. It's going to be 1. Then I'm going to be title, and let's add a title. I'm going to call it my first note. All right. Then we want to have some content. So here I can say, let's copy this, and my first node for testing app in JS. All right, and last we're gonna have the last updated. So when this node last updated, so we need to pass the date. So I say new date, and we want to pass it to correct format. We need to say to local string, and what it is going to do, it is going to give us the date and time. All right, so this is what we want. Now I want more than one record, so just going to copy this, and I'm going to put a comma here, and just here I'm going to pass the another. Okay, so we can have it like this. To my second note, just to see the difference. Okay, looks better. All right, now what do we need to do? We need to put these notes in local storage. So for that, what I want to do, I want to check first. So I say here if local storage dot get item. So we want to check if we have already saved notes. So it says saved and notes. You can give any name here, but I'm gonna give save notes for now. And here, then we say return. So if we have saved notes, only return those notes. So just copy here, paste. Else, if we don't have notes, in our case currently we don't have any. So we want to, what do we want to do? We want to set first. So we say here local storage dot set item, and here we want to set save notes. So just we pass the first value, which is going to be key, and then we want to pass here JSON and dot stringify, and here in the stringify function we pass the array. So here we have notes, and so we can pass our notes like there, just like that. All right, so this is how it is going to be. And here we are calling it in the constructor. If I go here and inspect, in a application, on the left you will see local storage. Our application local storage is here, so any value set will be displayed here. So if I refresh the page, console log, we get here not a function. Okay, so let's see this. We need to go in number 8 app.js. So to call the function using dot, we need to pass there a static keyword. So here we say static function. So once you call this way, it is gonna call without any problems. I refresh, it's just gonna work fine. Now if you see here, recently we did not have it, but now we have save notes and we have the value set. So we have 2 notes, and the detail is what we provided there. So you can see that title last updated, we have the date and time, ID, and the content. Now we have our notes showing up in storage, so we need to display our notes. So what do we do? First of all, I go back to the index.html. I need to add some content so that we start to seeing some content there. So for that, I have few pages open here on top. If you noticed, we have the Bootstrap CDN page here. All these pages the links are in the description. You can get from there. So for also you're going to use the font awesome. So for now here, what we need to do, we need to use the list group, and a list group looks something like this here. So I'm just going to copy this list group area and going to go back to the text editor, and here inside the column D3 I'm going to paste this like that. So we have here a list group item. We don't need these items for now. We delete these, and then I'm going to expand this so that you can see. Alright, so what do we need to do? We need to say, first of all, I'm going to pause here. Here we have an li. Here I'm going to pass an hr, and here I'm going to pass an li. This li I want to give it style a bit different, so I'm going to say it class, and I want to pass here bdn block, and bdn dark, and then add new node class. All right, inside we can say add node and put plus sign like that. Now here we have li. Here what I need to do, for now I'm just gonna leave it like this. So here I can remove this active class, because active class makes it active and background color to blue. So we don't want it for now, so we're just gonna leave it like that. So if we go back here and refresh, okay, we already have it, so you can see the button there and the list is showing up there. All right, now let's go back. Now here if I look for Jumbotron, so here it is. Scroll down, this is the portion we want to use, so I'm just going to copy this and going to take it to our code text editor, and there in call md9 I'm going to paste this like that. Okay. Now we want to put the form here, so what I want to do is simply, I'm just going to use the form input. It's going to be called text, and then I'm going to pass here class, it's going to be title. Alright, and after that we want to pass here the placeholder, and placeholder is going to be add title here, and after that I'm going to put here a HR, so that it looks a bit nicer. Now here what we want, we basically want a text area, so here we want to pass the placeholder as well, and here let's pass a placeholder, and it's going to be note details ... Save that. I'm going to give it the class of content, so pass here class content, and the same thing we can pass in ID and name as well. All right, so yeah, it is going to be fine. Now also I want to pass an input, and this input is going to be hidden, so we want to process the, I'm going to give it a class, and I'm going to say input note ID. So when we get the title and content, we can get the ID from here. and we will be setting the ID, and you will see when we do that. But for now, just to make sure we have an input hidden, it is not going to see display on the page, but we will be working with this. Alright, so we have here now here in the I'm gonna give it a class. It's a node output area, so I'm gonna call it node output. And also what we want to do, we want to give it some margins. I'm gonna say here margin 3 on top, so that it looks a bit better. So if we go back to browser, and you can see that it's looking a bit better. So we have some margin there, and we have this going on. Okay, back here, I'm not going to create a separate file for this. I'm just going to add the styling down here. So we have the title and class to input. So I just want to remove the borders, and on click it should have border, otherwise not, and background should be transparent. So let's correct that. So here I say class title, and class title I'm going to say display block. Then I want to have width to 100%, so it looks nice. And what do we want to do? We want to say border to none. Now we need to set the background as well, so background is going to be transparent. And the last, I'm going to add padding, so 2 pixels, that's it, not much. Now also we need to work on content portion, so I'm going to add some CSS for that. Content going to be also block. Now here we want to have width to 100% as well. Now also we don't want any borders, so I simply say none, and background needs to be transparent. Alright, great. Now here we can have some common CSS, so we say class title when active, so when we click on it, when we click on it, it's going to be the class focus, and when we are working on it, it's going to be active. So focus. The same way we want to work with content, and it is going to be active, also focus the same way, content focus. All right, and what we want to say basically border. So when we click on it, we want some border, say solid 1 pixel hash 777, so it's a light color. Now then we want outline. We don't want any outline, so simply we say none. Then we want to have padding. And we want to make sure we have the padding to 0 pixel. So I say not important. So it forces this padding, and margin going to be 0 as well. Not important to force it. Alright, now let's see how it looks. So go back here, and you can see that it's already looking a lot better. So we click here, and now we have border. Otherwise we don't have any border, so yeah, much better. Alright, now let's work on displaying our notes. So if I go to text editor again, here in app.js we have notes coming from here. So if I simply say console.log here and go back here, refresh, and we have the notes showing up here. Now as notes are showing up here, that means we can work with this and we can display our notes. So for that, what we're going to do, we're going to create another file just like node model, because anything to do with CRUD and getting updating nodes, we will be working on this file. But anything that we will be doing on the UI, on displaying, we will be using the node view file. So I create here, it's going to be node view dot, it's going to be, let's call it, node view is enough, I think, not view.js. And here, the same way we need to import it, so I'm just going to copy this, paste here. This is going to be view, and view here, capital V. Alright, now we need to export it. So here, export default class node view. Alright, and in this node view class we can have constructor just the way we had in model. In model, constructor is empty for now, so I'm just gonna copy and paste it here. Alright, so what do we need to do now? We need to set some values. So in the constructor we want to get the value of the root. Alright, so we need to have the access to our HTML. So I'm gonna remove this console log because we don't need it for now. Here I'm gonna say this dot view, and it's going to be the object of new, the class we just created, not view. And inside we need to pass root so that we can give the access to the HTML part. If you remember, we binded the HTML, so this root in the main.js here, so we are just passing that root here. Alright, if it is not making sense now, it will make sense once we be doing the CRUD, so stick to it and you will get the understanding. So here we have the root, and now as the root is passed here, if I go to node view, we can access this in here. So I simply say here this dot root equals the root we are receiving. It's gonna be equals to that, so that we can access it. Alright, so yeah, this is for now. It's going to be like this. Now in app here we are passing the root, and it's just gonna work. Now what I want to do, I want to create a function that is going to display the nodes. So currently we don't have any function that is going to display. So what we say, we simply say here this dot display and nodes. Alright, and it's gonna take this dot nodes. So here now we are getting the nodes, we are putting nodes inside here. So this has nodes, and we saw that using console log. Now we are passing this here in display nodes. In this function we can do something to display it on UI. So what we do basically here after the constructor, I'm going to call this function. So it's going to be display nodes, and we are getting nodes, so we simply say nodes here. And what we want to do, we want to say this dot view, and then dot, I'm going to create a function. So I say here display nodes, or I say display node list, like that, and we pass the same node here. So as it is, we are going to display it on the page, and it's a UI, user interface, so we will be working with the view file. So we are passing this to view file, and this function needs to be there. So we go back here, and here we need to create this function. So for creating this function, what we want to do, we want to go on create it here. So simply display node list, we have the nodes coming, and here inside I'm gonna add here getting HTML tag for appending nodes. All right, so we need to append the nodes, whatever nodes we have in loop, because if I go here in the application, we have these nodes we want to show here. They're not this static one, we want these there. So if I go back here index.html, here we need to change it. So I want to remove this, and what I want to do, I want to say here span, and it's going to have ID, and what ID, I'm going to say node list and HTML. So this is going to be the ID. So we're going to get this inside node view. Here we go and simply say constant, and I'm going to create the same name constant. This not the display. What I do, I copy the name from HTML. I just copy this name and go back here, create the same name here. Now what I want to say, this dot root, as we have the root at, and then we want to say query selector, and here we want to pass the ID. All right, so we will get the access to this. Now we need to show these nodes to this, so let's do that. So here again, the comment, I'm going to first, what I'm going to do, I'm going to sort the nodes. So I'm going to say sort nodes before appending. All right, so for sorting nodes, what I'm going to do, I'm going to say nodes and then sort. And here what do we want to do? Basically the nodes is an array. All right, it's actually not array. If I go here, you can see it's like this. So we need to make it as an array. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I see remove here. I say console.log and I simply say nodes. Okay, if you go back here, we calling this, there is nowhere else we are doing any console log currently, so the console log will fire from here. So I go back here, refresh, and yeah, it's here. So now we need to make it JSON and dot parse to make it an array. So if I go back now, you see this is as an array now, so we can loop through now. So what do we need to do? We need to sort this. So I cut this, paste it here, then I say sort. Now it's easy to sort an array, so here we're gonna do that. So I'm gonna say here function, so it's gonna be a simple function, and I'm gonna say A, comma B, and here what are we gonna do? We're gonna compare. So we say let variable name C is going to be the new date, and new date is going to have a dot last updated. So we have a value last updated, and we want to compare it accordingly because we have the date and last updated and date and time. So we want to sort by this. So we just passing this. So you're just gonna copy this, paste here. And this is going to be, let's call it D. And here, this is B. So AB is coming here. Now what we want to do, we want to say return C minus D. And this is going to sort it. Now if you console log here, A, or let's go on to log B as well, so you will see that we have the values coming. So if I refresh a new date, okay, it's getting space, sorry about that. So if I go back here, you can see that it's coming. So we are simply saying that we have values, get the last date, and then we are comparing. So just gonna remove this. This is gonna sort, and we need to update the sort by putting nodes. So whatever comes here after comparison goes inside nodes, and nodes going to be updated. All right, so it is going to be in ascending order. To work with the descending order, and here I say let's try to put it here. So I say nodes not reverse. So we want the last value first, we want to reverse it. Then I want to say for each, and this is how you for each loop. Now here I'm going to use an arrow function, and here we want to append it to the div and the span that we created in HTML here. That's now we're going to do here. All right, so what we need to do, we simply say this as an item. Okay, so each time each item, that means each node, and here we can say if item dot title, that means we have a node, and then we want to get this element. So we get this element dot inner, and we want to HTML, and we want to append to it, so it's going to be plus equal. And here we want to pass. If I go back, I already removed it from here, so what I do, simply go back to the Bootstrap website, the list group item, and gonna go back to the code editor, and here I'm gonna pass this. Now here in the content, we want to replace it with our content, so we simply say plus plus, and here item dot title. All right, so it should have our content there. Let me make it bigger. Okay, so if I go back here, somehow we don't have the notes here. So what I do simply, I'm just gonna check if we're getting the item. So I say console.log item, and go back here. We have this dot title. It's my mistake. Sorry about that, guys. We need to use HTML like this. So I called the HTML this simply. It gave us the problem. So now you can see the second node, and if we check here, second node is so it is currently just reversing the array, and the date and time is quite the same. So now as we have the nodes display, now need to work so we can work with the editing part of it. So what do we need to do in that case? So when we click on it, it should update here so that we can update it. So for that, what we need to do, go back, code editor, and if I go back here, we have the node view root passing here only, and in app we have node view here. Now what I want to do, I want to bind few functions. So here I'm gonna say comma, and then I want to pass here actions. So I'm going to say this dot actions. All right, so this dot actions is a function. I want to pass this. All right, and here I'm going to call this function, so it's going to be actions, and this action is going to return an object. Now here I'm going to say note select, because currently if we want to work on click on node, and it should update here. Don't worry about this, we will be working on it. So we want to select the node. So for node selecting, and we want to pass a function here. So what I do, I simply say, okay, node select, we're gonna get a node ID. So it's gonna be a node ID. And here we want to have a variable, let's say let selected node. For now I'm gonna set it to null. Okay, so we want to see on click node needs to be selected, and we will store that value inside this variable. Now to work with this function, we need to call this function. We already called these actions here, so this function will be in our node view, but how we will use it here. So if we're using it here, we want to pass it here. So again, constructor, because when it is going to fire automatically, because when you have this object created, this fired this constructor automatically, so it's going to fire that function, so you pass here. So that's gonna, if it is a bit confusionful, it will be cleared after some time, so be with me. Here, what do we want to say? We want to say a function of the same name that we pass here. So it's select no, and here, actually, node select, sorry, and here we want to pass node select. Okay, now here we want to say this dot node select is equal to node select. Okay, now what we can do, we can now watch it very carefully. So if I go back here, and let me take the node model side, we have app.js, we created the object, this view, we passed the node view, we added root is the HTML, and then this action, and this action has this method node select, be a passing ID, and that's it for now. Here in node view, we call node select, right? Same name. Now we say this dot node select is equal to the node select that we passed. So it is going to go inside it. Now here we can use this, we can call this inside this class. So here we are displaying the notes, right? So what we want to do, I want to set an event listener. So when we have the notes here, on click of these notes, we fire this function, and this function going to call automatically this function. So let's do that. So what do? We say here, let's say set event listeners, and here I want to set an event listener. So for that, what we need to do, we need to get here this, as we have the access to. I'm going to pause here, and if I go back to HTML, we have access to this, and all the list items are going to append inside it, so we can use this. So here I'm gonna say query, and it's going to be selector all, and then we want to pass this class, the list group item. So we want to pass it here, and I want to say here for each. All right, so that we can check each of list item and check where we clicked and where we want this function to run. So here, what I want to do, I want to say item for each element, and then we want to say item dot add event listener. Now this event listener will look for click, and then it is going to run an arrow function. Okay, great. Now we have the click event. So here, what do we want to do? We want to call that function that we passed in the constructor. So we say node select here. All right. So you get the idea. Now we are getting this node select that we call here, right here. Now this node select in app.js is expecting a node ID. So we can pass a node ID here as we are looping through, right? So we can pass here the item. Now currently, if we go here, we are not passing any ID, we are just displaying the note. So for example, if I go back to the editor, we just have this there. We don't have any ID, so we need to pass an ID. So what do? We simply say here data dash ID, all right? Data dash ID, and what value it is going to take. So we can pass ID here, but we need to put double quotes outside of it. So here inside, simply I'm gonna pass this way, copy and paste here. Instead of title, we want to pass ID. So now, and if I go here and here, if I inspect, you will see we have data ID, and those double quotes are wrapping the ID. So what do we need to do here now? So what do we go back here, and here I'm going to tell that we want to use this ID. So he simply, we say dot data set and dot ID. All right, so if this is how you access it. Now we notice we don't have, we have item here, so we can console log to see if we are getting it. Console log and item data set ID. Just gonna copy, paste here, semicolon, and here I'm gonna comment this for now. All right, so console log here. So when I click here, we get 2, click here, we get 1. So that's what we are passing. So node select, it is gonna get the ID. Now we have node select. If I go back up here, now we can work here with this. So we can pass here some functionality. So let's do that. So here, what I'm gonna do, if I simply say here alert, node ID, and go back here, click, you get the alert. So you can see this, that this node is getting the data. So here, what I want to do this time, I want to say getting and content from ID. Okay, so we need to get the content now. So let's get this. So we simply say json.parse, and we can access this .nodes, so we can pass this .nodes here. All right, so we have nodes. Now I'm gonna say for each, so each node it is going to check. Now I want to get the item for each node, so basically we're gonna get the each node here, and then we're gonna say if item.id, and the node we clicked. The node we clicked is the node here it is coming from, so we can check here. So if the click node, then what we want to do. So here we can say selected node that we created above here is going to be the item. Now notice this is not the item ID, it is the complete item, so it's a complete node. Or you can change it to node as well if you prefer that. So it's node, and I say here node, not the node ID. Okay, so it's gonna work. So now selected node has the value of clicked node. So what do we want to do? We want to make this node active. So if I go back here to make a node active, we need to pass active class, and you can see it's active and look blue. So we need to do something like that. So we go back here, and here after this, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna say this dot make node active. So we're gonna create this function, and here I'm going to pass this node. So I'm just gonna pass it here. So initially it was null, we got the node, and we pass the node here. All right, now let's create this. So we go above here, and I'm gonna say make node active, and we have the access to node. So I'm gonna say node. Inside here we're gonna say this dot view, and now we want to say again make node active, because we want to do it from the view file. So here I want to pass the node. Okay, so now we don't have this function there, so let's go. So go here, and here we create a function. It is ending, so after this we create a function, and as we're getting the node, we can pass the node here. All right, now as we are getting the node, now what do we need to do? So if I go back to the here, so basically we will have multiple nodes. So we want to check if any node is already active. We want to remove the active class, and then we want to add the active class to the click node. So I go back here, and the first thing I want to do here is that I would simply say first put a check if node, and if we have node here, I'm going to say making selected node inactive. So if basically pre-selected nodes, if there is any. So we want to unselect it. So the process is quite simple. We're going to set this dot root, because we have the access to root here. And if you remember, notice in app.js we don't even have, we have the constructor passing here, and we're using that root, but if we are not using it inside this app.js, but here we can use it. So here this dot root, and then what I want to do, I want to say dot query selector all, and here we want to pass the list item dot for each, and then let's put here node, and then we're gonna say that node dot class list, and what we want to do, we want to remove, and it's going to be dot here, and we want to remove a class if present active class. So if there is any class present active, remove, and then we want to add this class again, and this time to add active class to clicked node. So for this, what we want to do is say this dot root dot query selector, and here we want to pass an ID. Now currently if I go to our nodes, we have data ID and class. So what I want to do, I want to pass an ID. So let's do that. So what I do is simply go here and we can add an ID just the way we added node ID, data ID here. So node, so the ID equals double quote, and then inside a single quote, and then we pass this. All right, and to prepend, we want to add here note and dash. Okay, so now it's gonna have this. So if I go back here, and you can see that ID note 2, note 1. So we can use this. Now here, active in query selector, I can say ID note dash, and here plus we want to pass the node ID. So for that we simply say note.id. All right, and we say class list, and this time we say add active. If you see, it is going to work on only the one clicked version. I'm going to add the active class. So if I click here, you can see that it's working as expected. Now what we want to do, we also want to update the details here when we click. So let's do that. So if I go back here, so what do we need to say? We need to get each of the HTML values, so input values, and then we can set the values. So here we have class title, and here content, and here input node ID. So let's do that. So go back here, and here on top I'm gonna say updating form values, simply this dot root dot query selector, and this query selector going to get the ID class. First is the node ID, and I'm gonna pass here dot value. And what I want to do, I want to say it's going to be equal to node.id. All right, and the same way we need to set the two other fields. So just going to copy paste twice to save some time here. The second is the title class, and then we have content. So go there, just pass here title, and it's going to be node title. Then we have content, and here content. Now we need to put now let's see what happens if I go back here and we click here. We got, okay, my bad, I didn't add the class here, so we need to put here a dot in front of it. Then it should be working fine. Go back, refresh. You can see now, click it is updating that. Great. Now let's work on the updation of these nodes. So we have nodes of getting updated here. So if I go here and change the value, I want this to be updating in the data, because currently if we see here, it's not gonna go away. So for that, what we need to do, go back here, and here we are displaying the nodes. Now what I want to do, I want to add some event listeners here. So here we have already one. So what I want to do is here, I'm going to say constant, and so we already did a bit. So here I'm just going to copy these three, and I'm going to paste here. All right. So input title content. Now here it's values. I'm going to remove these. I actually don't even need the ID. So we need the title and this. All right. So here I'm going to create a constant, and I'm going to call it node title. with the constant node content. All right, so what do we want to do now? We want to put these two in an array. So I'm going to create an array. So the constant fields, and I'm going to say an array. We have two values, so I'm just going to copy and paste it from here. Comma node content, like that. And here we're going to say fields dot for each, and we want to run an arrow function here. And what we want to do, so we want to say here, I call it item, and let's call it fields. That's maybe better. So field, and here inside it I say field dot add event listener. And what we want to do, we want to check for blur. Okay, so when blur user leaves that input field, we want to run a function. And what this function gonna do, it is going to update. Here we want to add a function. So I'm gonna say this function this dot, and I'm gonna say note update. And we're gonna create this function now. So what is going to happen here? Basically, we want to pass the value. So I'm gonna say here node title and dot value, and I want to trim the value, whatever. So their white space is going to be trimmed, and then node content dot value, and then trim. All right. Now it is going to update. We will be needing the ID as well. So let's quickly add the ID. So I copy. So I say here ID, and here simply we can get the ID from the input. So in node input, and I'm gonna pass it here. All right. And this node we can pass as a first parameter here dot value. Okay. So we will be having the node ID. Now we don't have node update, so let's do that. So we have node select, and this time we need to add node update. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go back here and here in the actions array, because these actions are basically the edit, update, select. So those are actions. So we have the select the same way we now add the node update. So I'm just gonna copy this name from here, go back here, and I'm gonna put in here. All right. And now I'm just gonna have like this. All right. And here we have the actions. That's fine. Actions will send this. And here in our object on the top, I'll put a comma and add node update. And to use it, we can say this node update is equal to node update. Okay, now we are calling it here, and you can see that it is having some values, so we can get those values in our app.js where we are updating it. So here I simply say node ID, the first value we're getting, then new title as the it's going to be updating new title, so new content. All right, now here what I want to do, because we will be updating and it's a CRUD operation, I will be passing it to node model file. So let's do that. So for that I say node, and I'm gonna call node model here, and I'm going to create a function which is going to deal with update and insert both. So let's say it's update or insert node. So if it is there, update it, otherwise insert. Okay, so this is going to be this, and we can pass this like that. All right, and that's it. We don't have this function, so I go and create it in node model. Go up here, and after this function, we create this function here. Now this needs to be static as we are calling this function using class name. So we will be passing here static function, and the values, this is something that is not required. If updating, we need these, otherwise not. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to paste here, but I'm going to set these values to equal to null. So by default, these values are null, not required. All right. Now, what we want to do, we want to work with this function. So to do that, first thing first, I want to get all nodes. So here, I say get all nodes. And for that, I'm going to create a constant. I'm going to call this constant all nodes, and it is going to be node model. And I want to create a new method here, get all nodes. So this method will get us all the nodes. If it has all the nodes, then fine, otherwise give us blank array so that we can put the check if the node is present or not. Now we don't have this function, so quickly just add it here. We simply pass here get all nodes and static function. And here, what I want to do, I want to return JSON.parse. And what I want to do here, we want to get from the storage. So here, copy and paste inside it simply. Yeah, so it's going to get from the storage and going to get the all the nodes, what nodes are present there, and it's going to return, and it's going to return here in array format because we have your JSON parse there. Okay, so we have it here, great. Now let's proceed. Here, what I want to do, I want to say method constant. I call it stop processing. So if any error occurs, this is gonna indicate. So I'm gonna call false for by default. In here I say if node ID. So if we have node ID present, that means we are working with update. So update, otherwise insert. Now this is what it is going to do. So if and we are getting the node ID here. So if I pass here node ID, if it is null, so if node is null, it is going to fall here, and else if node is not null, it is going to fall here. So what we can do here, we have the nodes coming here. So I'm simply going to say here all nodes, and here it's all nodes, then dot map. So this is a map function we're going to use this time, and it's going to go arrow function inside it. And what I want to do here, I'm going to call node, and here we say if node.id equals node ID. So this node ID, because it will be having node ID, that's why it's inside this if statement. So here we will be passing it here. All right, and then we gonna say what we say node.title, okay, is equal to node title. So if we have node ID, that means we having the node title as well. So node title, and the same way we will have node content. So here content, and then content will be updated. Now also we need to pass the time here. So node dot last updated. Now here we're going to generate time, so it's a new date, and to match the formatting to local string. Okay, so it's to local string. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Okay, let's see if it is working. Go back here, refresh, and we click here. If I say here 1 2 3 and blur, when I click outside, console log, I think I missed something. Let's check. So we're setting values here to see the changes. I'm going to put here local storage dot set item. So we're gonna reset the new values, and I'm gonna say saved notes, and I'm gonna pass here JSON dot stringify, and I want to pass here all notes. Okay, so now we should see the changes. So if I go here, click, then I say 1 2 3 blur, and I go here, and you can see that the second has 1 2 3 there. Alright, so we have the data getting updated here. So 1 2 3 is showing up there. So I need a way to update this. So what we can do, if I go back to the code editor and we call this update insert in app.js here. So here I need to create a function that we will run afterwards, and that is going to update all the content. So what I do, I go back here and where we call this update. Right here, what we can do, we can call another function. So what I want to do, I want to say this dot refresh and note list. All right, we don't have this function currently, so we need to create this. So I copy the function name and just gonna create here. So this function is going to update the list. So for updating the list, what we need to do, we need to get the notes. So this dot notes, and we want to get it again. So we say note model and dot. So if I go to node model, we have get note for testing. So I'm just going to copy this function and I'm going to put here. So we gotta get notes, and this dot notes. We're gonna pass and get the value, and afterwards we need to I'm going to call this dot display notes. All right, and we want to pass this dot notes in it. Okay, and I made a mistake here. It's note model. Alright, so we don't have display note. We have it right here at the bottom. So we just gonna rerun this function inside this function, and this function will go, if we go into the view file in the display note list here, that's the one, and it is going to put the each li, so it should update. You can see there. So okay, so I click here and I say 3 4 5, and all right, it updates, but it is pending all. So for doing that, what we need to do, we simply say here, before putting in, we want to make sure that we are first making it empty. So out of the loop, I'm just gonna say set it empty and then add the new list. I can remove this console log, it's not required. Then we go back here. Alright, so here I click this, add 6, outside you can see it's updating. Perfect. So yeah, that's great. Now we need more information to display here. Currently we just have the title. We need to add the button to delete and other stuff as well. So for that, what I want to do is simply go to the here in li, and here we need to add more stuff. So I'm going to first put the title under strong tag, so they will be a little bit bold. So just gonna say strong. Alright, so before ending the li here, we can put a break tag, and after break we need to display. So here we can add the small tag now. So I say small and closing small, and inside it I'm going to copy and paste this right here, and I change it to content this time. Save this, and we have content showing up. That's great. Now go back here. We can have here, let's add an HR. Then here I say span, and it's span what I want to pass. So basically we want to have the updated, and here I want to pass the updated and last updated. So I just copy this, paste here, change this to last updated. Now we need to give it a class so it looks a bit different. So I say badge info. All right, save this, go back, and you can see that it's looking better. Now we also need a button, so let's do that. So go back here, and here after span close again, I'm gonna create another span here. So it's gonna be span and then span. And inside it, we wanna first, let's give a class. I want to pass it bdn info, danger this time, because this is going to be for delete. So we say delete. Now for delete, I want to use the font awesome. So let's go and look for Google font awesome, cdnjs.com, and here all.main.css. Just gonna copy this. In our code editor, I go to index.html, and on top here, just gonna create another link. All right, now we're good to go. So if I go back to browser, let's get the icon. So I simply say Google. Let's say delete is. So yeah, here it is. So I'm just gonna copy this. All right, now go back to our app, and in the not view, yeah, here we're working. So I'll just have to delete. I'm gonna paste that. Save it. Go here. Okay, it looks like this. It's quite big here, so we can make it small. So the span index.js, index.html. Here I can give .badge, and here I simply give the font size. So I say font size 11 pixel, because we added the class to badge font size. So now it should correct it. So if I go here, we have it. All right, this looks good. Now we can work on deleting of notes. So when I click on this one, it should get delete the note. So let's do that. So for that, what we need to do, go back to here, app.js. Now here, if you remember, this is an action, and we already have two action, node select and node update. So here I create another action, and that's going to be node delete action. And this node delete action is going to take node ID. So we're going to pause here node ID, and then we're going to work with this. So I simply say node model dot delete node function, and inside this we can pass this node ID that we are getting, and we already have this dot refresh list, so we can call this refresh list afterwards of this, so that it refreshes the list. Okay, so we don't have this function currently, so let's add this node model, and as we calling using class name, we need to call the static function. So here static delete node ID. For now, I'm just gonna say alert node ID. All right, and to make it work, if you remember, this is an action, so node delete, and actions we are passing to the object for the class. So here we need to call this inside our here in object. So here, right, I put a comma and pass here the node delete. Now to access it, we simply say this node delete, like this. All right, so here now we can use this function. Now here I called node model delete. So we call it here, and now we can attach it onto an event. So node delete should be when we delete the node. So I want to set that event listener on clicking of this button. So let's do that. So here in display node list, here what I'm going to do, I'm going to pass here, let's add here delete node event listener. So simply we're gonna say constant, the way we did before, and let's copy this from here and paste here. I'm gonna call this delete node, and it's gonna be equal to this root query selector. Now we need to get the class. So if I now we need to give it a class. So here, if we go back, we have this here badge danger. So here we need to also add a class. So I'm gonna call this delete node class to this, and we can use this class. So let's go back, and I put that here. All right, and then you can say delete node dot add event listener, and I'm going to be click event, and I want to run a function. All right, and I want to pass node here as its arrow function, and here what are we going to say? We say this dot not delete. Okay, so we're calling this function here, and now we need to pass the ID. So ID we can get here item dot target dot ID. Okay, so to get this ID through the target, we need to do small trick. So we currently, you can see here in our li we don't have ID, and we need to put an ID, and we want unique ID. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say ID, and I'm going to say this is going to be node delete. All right, and then dash, and here we want to use the ID. So I'm just going to copy this like here, and here we're going to pass inside it. Now this becomes ID. Save it, go back, and here just inspect. Now we have node ID, node delete 1, and here node delete 2. Yeah, now we can use it. So go back, and if here where are we using here currently, so if I simply console.log item, so we can get that value. So if we go back here, refresh and hit it, it says item, oh sorry, it's node. So the same goes here, node. Go back here, refresh, hit. So you can see that we are getting the pointer now here. we have the target and the ID, so we can work with that. So if we pass here node target ID, we will be having the ID of it. So if I go back and refresh and hit again, node ID 1, hit here. So to work with all the buttons, we need to convert this to all buttons, because currently we are selecting one file, one LA element, where ID, if I inspect here, is the lead node, and then we are putting the event listener. But we want to do it on each of the list items, so for both, or if we have multiple more, so for all of them too. Just here, dot for each. All right, now what do we want to do? We want to, and then we need to pass this class, so we want to pass here. So it is going to get all the buttons, and then we want to just take this code inside it, and instead delete item, we want to pass here item, and in delete node I'm going to pass here item. All right, so the item dot click, and this item is the delete button, so every delete button, and on click we're going to get the node target ID. So we can remove this constant, go back here, and here if I click on this, we get node delete 2, click here, node delete 1, so, and we call node delete, and we pass the ID the expected way. So now what is going to happen is going to go to node delete. Node delete is here, it is going to go to model node delete, and ID is by passing, and then it is here. So currently we're not going to see much, it's just going to alert here. So let's remove, and to get the old nodes we will be using model node model dot get all nodes, the function that we have here that we used previously to get the all nodes here. So just that we're gonna use here. So we can say we'll use if there are nodes, otherwise I return empty array. Now what I want to do, I want to create a new list, so I create a new list variable, and I set it to empty array, and then here all I need to do, I'm going to loop through this. So for looping through, we can copy this code for making things quicker. So I paste here. Now we have node, each node, and what we want to do here is in the if condition I'm gonna make a few changes. So here I'm gonna say not equal to node ID. All right, so so whatever node we clicked on, we want to remove it. So what it's gonna do, it is gonna check if the node is not equal, only then it should go inside it, and then we will update the storage. So here we can say local storage dot set item, and we are going to use the same key to update the nodes. Save nodes, then JSON dot stringify, and I want to pass here new list this time. So it is going to filter that particular ID. Now here currently, let's check if we're getting it right. So what I do, I'm gonna comment this, and also want to comment this. Let's get the node. So we're getting node ID. So I want to check here console.log. We check node, also node ID. Okay, so we go back here. I click here. So we get this. So we get first the node complete, and then the node ID. So if you click the second node, so there. So I click here, node ID is here, and this is here. Okay, so it's a string. So we need to remove this node delete dash, because it's not gonna, because the here it is ID. If you see here, we are checking node dot ID, so it is gonna check for this dot ID, and here it is node delete dash 2 or node delete stat 1. So it's not going to be equal. It's not going to work here. So what I do is simply use a function from JavaScript. And what I can do here is let me do it here as well. So we do a node ID, and I say dot replace. When first value we need to pass is node delete dash, and we want to replace it with empty. I'm gonna copy the same, paste it here, then this comparison will work. And to see the if I click here, you can see that now it's 1, you can see, and if I click here it's 2. Yeah, so it's working. Now we have new title is undefined. Let's see what is happening. Okay, so we just cross this portion. If it is not, then we need to pause. We didn't need to do this, we can remove this. All we need to do is we need to simply put the node in the list, this list. So I say here list dot push, and I'm gonna push here node. And as we are pushing node, then we are updating the local storage, so it is going to update it. Then if you go back here, after deleting, we are calling the refresh, so it is going to recall the list, so it should be fine. And I see this also. Let me see why it's showing up there. So okay, so I click here and that is gone. So if I go to application, you can see there it's no longer there. So if I click here, this is gone too. Now if I refresh it, it's not going to show because we still have this setup. Alright, so here in the browser we still have the key set, and its value is empty. And so here we are simply checking if there is key set, so return the values. It's returning empty. That's why if I go here and refresh, we don't see the nodes. So I delete this from here and refresh. You can see now it sets the value, and this time it shows here. Now we so far have worked with delete, update. Now we need to work with add. So let's do that. So if I click this, it should work. So currently we don't have the functionality in place. So I go back to app.js, and this is the other event action. So if you remember, we are passing the actions here. In the actions, we already added the node select, node update, node delete, and let's add here node add. All right. Okay, so first thing first, what I want to do, I want to call the same function here, and just copy this and put here. And this time for adding, we don't have anything, so we don't have ID, title, content. For now, I'm just going to pass it as empty, and then we want to refresh the list as well. So just copy this and paste it here like this. All right. So what we're going to do, so if I added it here, so we need to go in node view, and here we need to pass it in object as well. So we can call it on and click off the button. So here simply this dot node add, and I simply say equals to node add. Now this dot node add, we can set an event listener here so that we can click on this button and then we add. So for that I go here and just let's add here add new note. All right, and simply we want to say first of all we want to get the button. So if I go back to the HTML and we need to see the button, we have add new note class set to it, so we can use this class. So I go back here and I pass the constant. Let's put it on top, constant. I call it the same name, this dot root dot get, sorry, it's going to be query selector, and then we want to pass the class. All right, so we have the add note, add new note, and here what I want to do, we want to put a add event listener, and in this event listener we want to check for a click. Now this is going to be arrow function, and here what I want to do, I want to call this dot node add. So node add. If I'm not wrong, this is the function name. Yeah, node add. All right, so it should do it. So it is going to fire this. We have this working here. Now we need to go here. So go to this function, not model, and we have our function here. So by default these things are null. So if ID is set, so this in this case ID is not set, so it is going to go in else. Okay, go back here, and yeah, hit it. So we get adding new note, right? So now first I'm going to add it, and then I'll explain how it works. So I'm just going to remove this code in else, and here we can even comment adding new note. And simply what I want to go do here, first of all, we can say here, first of all I want to get the notes. So we are getting all the notes here. So we have the all note. So I'm just going to copy this and paste here. And I want to change this condition now. So I say if note dot title. All right, if note dot title is null. All right, and I also want to check for empty string. So if note dot title is null and note dot title is empty string. So if these two things are empty, all I want to do, I want to check the stop processing. So here we're gonna check this stop processing, and we're going to set it to true. And now we can access it. Yeah, we can. So yeah, it's gonna give us the alert that, oh right, we have one note which has the null or empty value as titled. So here, after this, what I want to do, actually, we want to do it after this here, if not stop processing. So if not stop processing, what do we want to do? We want to add the note. So all notes dot push, and what I want to push in here, I want to push an object. So it's going to be title, and it's going to have null value, then it's going to have an ID, it's going to be new, there's a new space date, and there is the dot value of function, then comma, then we're going to apply content. In a moment I'll show you why we are passing null. We're passing null so that user can set the values. We're just gonna add, so I pass here last updated, it's gonna be new date, and to match the format, same format we this time, to local string. So we are basically passing the null title and null content, and user can update it. So I'll show you how it works. So we have ID, it is going to be generated based on time. We can have last updated is going to be added here. Now if you notice, we when we add it, we need to update the local storage. So we are doing it here, but we are doing it in the both cases. So what we can do, we can take this outside of these if else statement, because it is going to happen in both times. So I'm going to pass it here. All right, because here it's all notes that is getting updated, and here it's also getting updated. So the same thing is going to happen, and it should work. So if I go back to here, and if I hit this, let's see, application here, we get null, we get ID generated here, we get content null, we get the date and time. Now what I do if I hit again, we get this added again. All right, so this is the issue. So let's correct that. So we have the it's getting added again and again. That's not right. So if I go back to code, we are updating this value, and if you noticed, I added it as a constant. So constants can't be changed. We need to make it a variable so that it can be updated. So it's going to be let. So we have the this is let. Now we can update it. So here, if it is null or it is title is empty, then we are setting it to true. If it is false only, we are then going to add it. So okay, this should work. We get back here, refresh. We have 2 nodes currently. If I hit again, we have another hit again, and you can see it's not adding. So if I click here, click back again, in any case it's not adding. So we have here. Now what we can do, we can pass this blank node here, and then user will add the detail. So that's why we are putting the null here instead of putting any title, because we want to give user a space to add, and we need to display it with null value. So for that, I go back to the node view, and if here you notice we check the if the title item title, then we are putting, but in our case for this very value we have title as null. So this condition is failing and it's not adding it into the list. So what we do here, we also put an else condition in that case, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy this complete line and I'm going to paste here. Alright, so in this case we won't be having the title, so I just remove the title portion, and we can put here some static text. So I say add and note details. Alright, and for the content, you can leave it blank, or if you want to put some placeholder, it's up to you. So I just leave it blank here. So if I refresh now, you can see that we have 3 nodes now. It says add node details. So now if any user clicks on this one, we can put here, so user put values here. So yeah, so now it's displaying just fine now. So user now can update it. So simply click here and put some text and then updates it. Now we want to select it, because when we click here it should be selected. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create another function, and let's do that. So we go back to code editor, app.js, where we adding this. After refresh, I say this dot, and I'm gonna call it get last, because it's a last element that we are adding, so we need to get that. So we say here last added note. Alright, so this is the function, and let's create this function here. So I say get last added note, and what exactly this is going to go, it's going to return, and what it is going to return, let me remove this. So get last added note, and what we want to do here is we want to say let new note position. Okay, so we need to get the position of the note because we want to select it, and it is the second position, so we need to get that position. So here we say JSON.parse, we want to parse here this dot notes, and after that we say dot length -1. So we are saying count the total, so these are 3, and -1, which is second. So after these are 3 elements, -1 is 2, and second element we need. So that's what we are passing here, new position. And here what we can do, we simply can say this dot view dot, and I say here select last added note. All Alright, and what I want to do basically, I want to pass this position. So, but before that we wanted to use this function again. So I'm just gonna paste it here, and then in bracket, in position. And what we want to pass here is the ID. So we know which ID it is. So it is this is the ID that we're gonna get, and we are passing here. Alright, so once it is passed, it is going to go back to Node, and then we copy the function name, go to Node view. At the bottom, let's add the function. Here we are getting the Node ID, and here simply this dot Node select that we used previously, and I want to pass this Node ID. Okay, so what happens? This dot Node select is going to go. It's already getting the ID here. So if we go Node select in here, it is just gonna get all the for each again, and gonna get the ID and make the active. So let's see if it works. If refresh, you can see that one click of that it works. So if I even delete it, refresh, and we have two nodes. I add new one, and it adds new one pre-selected. So if let's see if the update is working. So if I say here something, and it updates, and we say here works, and it updates too. Alright guys, so this is complete now. So we have the it's working, it's sorting as well. So if I click here and change the title of 1 to 3, it comes on top as it's updated recently. Yeah, so everything is working. We just added one node, and we can create more. So just click add here, and then we can put any title or content. It is just gonna add on the fly straight away. If we want to delete any of these, we simply click, it deletes. And yeah, so if we click here, it selects. Now this, as we have these, we can add more, and the new one gets selected automatically, and we can put the title and details again. Alright, so code for this video is available for download. You can use it as you like. Hope you like it. Do subscribe to the channel, leave your feedback, like this video, share with others. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.